Well, I'm just grateful I have a PowerPoint because I'm not going to be able to talk now since Tara pointed out that everybody's looking up our noses. But at least you're looking at a PowerPoint. This is going to be a very quick one. I know if you have scanned through the agenda, we got a lot of stuff packed in here. So one of the things we did was try to do some shorter presentations, and hopefully they don't have time to fall asleep during them. So let us know how you feel about this as well. We always welcome feedback. This is a really short review on the supplemental AFRs, or the documents formerly known as supplemental CARs. Either way you want to go with that. As I've explained in the past, CAR stands for County Annual Report, but when we went to Gateway, we just did a uniform annual financial report, and that's when the name changed. But it's the same thing. We just don't call it a CAR anymore, but you can call it anything you want as long as you get it done on time. Yes. So for the supplemental, I want to go over this because we have talked to the treasurers, we have talked to the clerks, and in November, we are going to talk to the sheriffs specifically about filling out these supplemental AFRs for the auditors. And I want you to know what we've told them so you all are kind of on the same page with that. So some of this you really already know, but this is what we try to explain to them. There is the funds ledger that is maintained by the auditor. That is the official financial record of the county. This includes all of those operating funds of the county, that where general fund, where most of the budgets are coming out of, your special revenue funds, your grant funds, your capital project, your debt service funds. It also includes fiduciary funds and settlement funds, and everything that's in there is part of that funds ledger that the auditors are uploading onto Gateway at the end of the year, beginning of the subsequent year. However, there are additional funds that are not on the funds ledger, which you are well aware of. The treasurer holds the property taxes that they collect. They also hold excise taxes and other sources that they distribute, that are distributed through you at settlement. These are not on the funds ledger yet. They're held on the cash book. The sheriff has a commissary fund and an inmate trust fund that are never on the funds ledger. They are responsible for those funds, and they are accounting for those separate from the county. The clerk has a trust fund that they are responsible for various things, including judgments and fees that they collect, although they turn the fees over monthly, but they keep the judgments, and other trust, child support also runs through there. All of those things are outside of the funds ledger. So when you're uploading your funds ledger, that information is not available. However, those are departments of the county. That information has to be on the annual financial report in order for that report to be complete. You don't have that information. You have to get that information. That is what the supplemental AFR is for them to give you the information you need to add those funds to the AFR on Gateway. There are some additional funds that are out there depending on your county. I just want you to be aware of them. We don't really get to a lot of these people, although we try as much as possible. If you have a county home and they have resident trust accounts, they are probably not material, but they may have funds that need to be included. Your tourism commission, that's been kind of an issue the last couple years. If they have a separate treasurer where the county is not the one paying the claims for the commission, not the separate, not for profit, we're talking about the commission as part of the county, those need to be pulled in. Community corrections, we are finding out that they are opening commissary funds. We're not sure, we're working on that, but if they have them, they need to report them. If you have juvenile detention, that should be part of the sheriff's reporting those when they're reporting their commissary or trust funds. If your prosecutor is still running a bad check program and is keeping money, hopefully that's not material, but also there's just other sources where money is being held outside of your funds ledger that you need to be accounting for. We are not talking about clearing accounts. So the recorder is a perfect example of that. They have a separate bank account, but each month they're turning their collections over to you and to the treasurer to be put into the county treasury. So those are not outside that they're being counted for. Those are being pulled into. So health departments, if they have a separate account, park departments, things like that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about funds that are being held for and accounted for outside the county funds. So again, you are uploading that financial data by fund into Gateway. I think everybody uploads it. The outside funds have to be uploaded manually. It doesn't have a lot of detail. All you're really putting in is the receipt, the beginning balance, receipts, disbursement, and ending balance on those. The supplemental AFR are the source documents. That's what you're using. Just like your funds ledger is the source document for the amount that you're uploading, that supplemental AFR is the source document for those additional funds. They are the responsibility of the official that's over those funds. So the sheriff is responsible for certifying what's in the sheriff commissary and inmate trust. The clerk is responsible for certifying what's in the clerk's trust or child support fund if it's separate. The treasurer is responsible for certifying what's in the after settlement collections. So you should review the information, make sure that the AFR is complete and that the information looks reasonable, but they're certifying that amount. You're taking that information and adding it to your funds ledger. Okay. We have been very careful to tell the sheriff, the treasurer, the clerk that they are responsible for making sure that this information is correct and that it ties back to their records, and they will be audited on that. They have to have the supporting documents when we come into audit to support the amount that they're supplying to you on that AFR, that supplemental AFR. Depending on your software, probably not. They're keeping separate records. So it's not something you're going to go to. It's something you would have to get from them. It would be public. They would have to provide it if you asked for it, but it's not something they're putting in until the end of the year. That's what the supplemental AFR is to report that information. So you're not going to have a commissary fund on your funds ledger. You're going to have it in the AFR, but it's not going to be on the funds ledger. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but yeah. Okay, there is a template that is to be filled out, and I put the location here. I also gave it again to those other offices, and we will give it to the sheriff in November. We aren't really concerned with how they get this information. They can go to our website at any time and download this template. You can download it and email it to them if you know you think they're not going to do it on their own. But here's the information to get that. It's in Excel, so they can fill it in on their own through that. We'll have to print out and certify it unless your county has a way to do electronic signatures, and then they can either scan it in and email it back to you, or however inter county mail get it to you so that you have the actual document itself. So you should be requesting these in January because you need this as part of your AFR that you're going to submit by March 1st. So it would be wonderful if they just did it on their own, but I'm hazarding a guess that they probably do not remember to do that. And so you want to try to send out an email or however your, again, you get your information out to your departments that this information is needed, and kind of nudge them a little bit to get this information in. This is what the form looks like. You should be familiar with it. But this is the template. Again, it's in Excel, so they can go in and just fill this information in. It's pretty basic information. It should come directly from their ledger. We have been trying to train them. This is not your bank statement. This is your actual ledger that you're using to support this. We will trace, when we come into audit, we're going to look at your ledger and trace the numbers that you submit on your AFR back to that ledger. They are signing this, that they are certifying that this information is true and correct to the best of their knowledge and belief before they're submitting it to you. If you have issues with supplemental reports, and I'm sure that everyone has had issues at one point or another, here are some tips, and always Ricky and I are available if you have questions. We will try to help as much as we possibly can with that. If the beginning balance on the supplemental AFR does not tie to the ending balance from last year, that's going to be an issue. If the report has been audited, that's even more of an issue. But even if it's in Gateway, it's just what you loaded in Gateway. If it's a 2-year report or something and you haven't been audited for that year, it should tie. Okay. If the amount is not material, I mean, if the amount is insignificant, it's a couple dollars here or there, it could be rounding, don't worry about it. Okay. That's just not enough money to spend a lot of time hassling over it. Let it go. If it's a larger amount, you can question them. What we have trained on is if your amount is different, and we've told them where to go and look for the audit report and for the prior report in Gateway. If your number is different and you've determined that the number you previously put in was incorrect, you should document on the AFR why you changed it, what you determined was the reason that it was incorrect, and then put in the correct number. If the amount is material, it may require a restatement of that, but you can talk to your audit team when they come in. But we really want the correct number there. If it's a small amount, we've told them, if it's not a material amount, you can probably put the beginning number and kind of massage that either through the receipts or disbursements, so you come back to the correct ending balance. So if it was too high, you could reduce your receipts for it, or if it's too low, you could add to your receipts for that year. But you have to document what we've told them. You have to document on the AFR what adjustments you made to that, so that anybody looking at that, including the auditor's office, can see what was done and why it was changed. Okay. That's probably one of the bigger ones. If you look at it and the beginning balance is fine, but the receipts or disbursements do not look reasonable to you. If it's an after settlement collection and you're using the treasurer telling you there's $300,000 or $400,000 and suddenly there's $3 million, you have the right to question that. Just send it back and go, this is not what we've showed in the past. If there is a reason, they should be able to tell you, hey, this happened and this is the reason it's so much higher. If not, it may be a clerical error and they can correct it. So you do have, that authority to say, this doesn't look reasonable. We need to talk about it and communicate with that. If they maintain that is the correct amount, they're certifying it to you. Okay. Hopefully that will never happen. But if it does, call us and we'll talk to them to figure out what the issue is. If it's that high off, I can't imagine. But they are the ones certifying that amount. If they go back and say, yes, I've checked my records and that is what was correct for the year. If the report is not complete, they don't fill it out, they don't sign it, they don't, they leave something out, then you can return that and say, this is not, you need the completed report. It needs to be filled out completely. It needs to be signed. They need to certify the amounts and get that back to you. If they don't submit it at all, you need to document for the audit team what your steps were to request it. And for all of them, what you did to review it and to get any corrections you thought were necessary. Do not hold up the submission of your AFR for a supplemental. If they are not working with you and not getting it to you, it is better to submit that AFR on time with that missing information than to hold it up. If you do get it later, if they say, oh, another week, I'll get you that information, go ahead and submit the AFR. You can unsubmit it, add that information and resubmit later, but don't hold up your AFR because there was a supplemental missing. Did that answer your questions, sort of? Okay. Yes. The certification should be enough in of itself. Now, if it's not reasonable, and you're questioning it, they may supply that to show that they really have that amount. But we are going to work on training for that. We have a lot of new FEs that have, they're learning too. And we're aware of that. And it's been brought to our attention. If you can get it, go ahead. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting it. It's not, and that's really what the training is going to be on. It's really what we need to be clear on is if they are not providing the correct information, the non-compliance finding is on them. Now there's still, and here's the caveat on there could be a Section 2 finding on the financial statements as a whole, which you might want to, do the extra effort for, because that would be that that's going to be to the county on the financial statements as a whole if there are not controls in place to make sure that that information is provided to you and correct. So to summarize, over these supplemental reports, you need to document your controls over obtaining them. Okay, so if you're not even asking for them, and so they don't get put on, there will be a finding on the auditor's office if they're not even being requested and they're not included in the financial statements on Gateway, on the AFR and Gateway. So make sure that you're documenting that you are requesting these and you're following up on your requests. Okay, so document, if you're doing it by email or memo or however you're doing it, keep that documentation for audit. Okay, document your review. So if someone in the office is looking them over, comparing them to last year's, getting bank statements, if that's part of your procedures, initial or document on there that that's what you did to look it over. If you're returning it for any reason or questions, document that, send it back on this date with these questions. These are the responses. Keep all of that for audit as well. Okay. And then when you're doing your second review of your AFR as a whole, make sure that part of that review, so the main part of the review is someone is taking that, output of your financial report and they're comparing that back to your funds ledger to make sure there weren't any data entries or any problems with the data upload. But make sure that at the same time for all of those supplemental funds, they're tracing those numbers back to the actual supplemental AFR, because those were your source documents. Since those were added manually, they may even be more likely to have an input error. So you want to trace those back and tick and tie those off to make sure all of those tie back to the actual source documents. Are there any other questions about this? Again, if you have any trouble on this, let Ricky and I know. We'll be glad to try to help with this and intercede. And again, I just wanted to let you know we have hit this with all of the main offices that have these outside supplemental reports, and we will be talking to the sheriffs about this in November. So we are trying to have your back on this. And I know that it is an issue for you. So we will also be putting out some training for our staff as well, so they're aware of what they should be looking for and how these findings fall. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hold on. People online cannot hear.
Sorry. I had the same experience with my audit this year as you did. And they requested that we obtain the financial records monthly or at the end of the year from our sheriff's department. And we have issued that in accordance with State Board of Accounts guidance from my, so.
The issue really, and I understand it, if you're able to get it, that's fine. The issue is you're dealing with another official. You can't control what they do. And that's why we're saying that that finding really, the section 2 finding on the financial statements as a whole is on the county as a whole. But the non-compliant should not be on your office because another official failed to comply, is what we're saying. And so we are working on that to correct that.